Let me know how you think about this intro. This phone, the Umidigi Z2 Pro, about a week ago, I wouldn't have been able to recommend it all because it had one major issue. Once you reboot it, it says your pin lock is wrong, even though it's not, and you pretty much have no chance to get into the system. I got 2 times into it after like half an hour of going through weirdest things, but this got fixed with an update about 4 days ago. So this is fixed. But I still can't recommend it for the reason that it's, in terms of value, just not good enough. Even though it's actually not a bad phone, it's actually quite okay. But it costs about $330 if I didn't get it wrong, and about 290 euros, which is just way too close to something like our Honor Play, or even more so the Poco phone, which after all destroys this phone in terms of value. But there are quite a few things that I like about this phone, so let's see about those. First of all, I like this case because, as you can see, it's kind of some fake leather, and this would have been pretty much the best case that you get stock with a device if it wouldn't have been for these 2 holes, because I don't get these. As you can see, they are actually protruding a little bit, and they're exactly where I have my finger, and it's just annoying because these holes don't do anything. There is nothing here. I don't know. But it is a really nice case, and if that doesn't bother you, that's actually nice. And yeah, the dongle. No headphone jack, but that's not a thing that I like. What I like is the design. And I would have given this phone, in terms of design, 5 stars, because it reminds me so much about one of my most favorite phones ever, the Xiaomi Mi 6, just in a little bit bigger version. Yes, the curves and everything else is just not so good. The only reason why I took half a star off is just because the notch. The notch is a half star off. But build quality is also really good because I tried to bend it actually really hard. I got it once to make a little bit of a cracking noise, but since then never. Everything is solid. Okay, maybe the buttons, I have to say, those wiggle quite a lot. But they are placed very well, and the tactile feedback is still very good. What is not good though is this fingerprint reader. It's bad, and I'm actually very close to maybe even giving it just 2 stars because it doesn't react often, not at all. Not really happy with it. I mean, I will maybe give it 3 stars. I would give it like 2.5, but I don't have this rating. I mean, it's easy to reach. It's a really good position. But as you can see, it's super slow, and so many times it just doesn't react. What actually works way better, maybe just rely on that if you have seen the face unlock. That one actually doesn't work super fast, but that one is actually way more reliable. Then the front, as you can see, is pretty much flat with an ever so slight little curve. What else? Cameras. Let's get into one thing. The second cam is pretty much a dummy cam, even though it is a real cam. From what I've read, it seems to be the case that they just didn't pay, or they were maybe too cheap to pay for the algorithm for it to actually work for the bokeh mode. So it's there. It is an actual cam, but it doesn't really do anything. Personally, I don't really mind it so much, and especially since they don't protrude really much, but it will slide on it on something very smooth. Yes, fingerprint reader, fingerprint attractive it is, but it feels very solid. I like that. And there's also some quite solid oleophobic coating on the front, so no issues in that regard at all. So build quality is actually really good, and design I absolutely adore. Now fingerprint, what's with the fingerprint reader? Microphone, SD card and SIM card tray, USB Type-C, 1 speaker, not with an earpiece or something like that, and for symmetry, I guess, for the other thing. Yeah, the notch, it is there. And before anyone says there is an issue, I will get into one thing later. But it's so wide, notifications will get blocked. Yeah. Speaker and so on. And this actually, I don't know why, but seems like a lot of wasted space. Side bezels though actually quite small, because if you compare this with something like a OnePlus 6, you will see similar size. And yeah, it's shorter and it is narrower. So in terms of design, a really nice job. Okay, so there's one thing that I actually forgot, but I wanted to mention it, so that's why I'm going to tell you now, which is the extra notch, as you can see here, because there is no option to disable the notch. But don't worry too much about this little bit of a notch, because I've tinkered with the DPI. I do this on every phone, but I wanted to mention this for those who still do this, because I changed it from the default 360 DPI to 420, which makes everything smaller, so the status bar got smaller, and that's why you see this extra notch. If you never change the DPI from 360, which I think everything is just too big, everything is fine. But the reason why I'm showing you this and why I'm telling you this is that, for example, Honor phones or some other phones that allow you to change the DPI, which is a normal thing, don't really change the size of the quick settings and everything else along with the status bar, so things maintain properly hidden. If you don't play around, no problem. If you play around with the DPI, just so you know. But let's get into the thing that would be the display. No real extra settings. You can't just change it because this is pretty much stock Android. So no customization in terms of the calibration or something like that. With 460 in terms of maximum lux on white, it is okay. Viewing angles are not the very best, and you can see they diminish quite early already. This is what I've noticed. Black values are on an okay average level, and the colors seem fine. The only thing that I didn't like so much, even though it is still bright, sharp enough with a 1080p display on this size, in video it kind of over sharpens and you can get a little bit of some kind of false conscious. I don't like that because I don't see the reason. 1080p on 6.2 inches is absolutely sharp enough. So why did they think they have to over sharpen in video? Because there it looks worse than comparable displays. Just on its own it would be thing good. About the speaker. The speaker is okay. It's loud enough, not the loudest one, and it distorts a little bit at the maximum volume. It sounds okay, but mids are lacking and the highs are a little bit on the more dominant side, so it can be a little bit harsh. It gets the job done, nothing more, nothing less. The headphone jack, yeah, as you have seen already, dongle, not in the phone, is okay as well. It is loud actually, but it distorts also, which is something very rare on a headphone jack because you get enough volume. But for some reason you don't get it high quality, so it distorts a little bit, and it's a little bit more on the bassy side, so maybe adjust it with an equalizer, but it gets the job done. Still better than a Huawei. Okay, so let's get into the performance. Let's clear them all and check the launch times. And I have to say the P60 does a fine job mostly, but it's definitely not a Snapdragon Qualcomm. Why? The thing is actually once it is running smooth as it now does, and especially some lighter apps, it runs actually really nice and is very close if not on par with a 660. But it's just not the case consistently. So I would say about 660 when everything runs fine. But then about 626 or 660 because it lags quite a lot. You see quite some instances of general lag. It's nothing major, it doesn't really change too much of the overall experience, but it's noticeable, especially if you have seen so many other phones by now. You just know that lag by these days is actually not really a thing anymore. Yeah, sometimes you see some minor frame drops or you see some things, but you see it still. So reacts very well and overall still nice mid-range level, absolutely not a problem. Now gaming I would have said is okay. Maybe not even quite on a 640 level, it's okay, but just don't expect too high frame rates and it gets warm obviously. Now full charge, 1 hour and 45 if I don't mix up the values, but even if, doesn't really matter. That's what pretty much every phone needs these days. YouTube I didn't check, but I would expect it for like about 10%, that's what I have. And what I got in normal use, pretty much average of 5.5 hours on mobile data, not really that much more on Wi-Fi, like maybe 7.5 hours. That's still actually a good value. Standby rate was quite fine. So overall, yeah, fine. Now software, like I said, this is pretty much stock Android. As you can see, you even get the Google feed. You get a very stock Android-like feed, but let's not forget this is not Android 1 or anything like that. So you have to rely on the updates from Umidigi, and this is where the issue comes in when I said it already. Before the update that I got like 4 days ago, which I didn't get, that's the thing, I couldn't recommend it. What I had to do is download the update and then manually, but that was pretty easy. You just have to go into and make a local update. That's fine, that's fine. But there was no OTA. So if I wouldn't have seen that this update somewhere on a site, it could have been that, because so many, and that's one thing you can't expect from a person. You can't expect a normal buyer to Google stuff and to know I have to update. You should get an OTA, and you shouldn't definitely, once you reboot the system, get the message that you got a wrong lock code, which isn't wrong. Buttons can be changed, as you can see. You can hide them, sweep, flip to move. So it's very, very minimalistic. You don't really get much more speed, Dura speed. Yeah, I don't think I have to get into that. So software on its own now is stable and it works okay, but that's just not the way to do it. I don't need to, I shouldn't need to do it manually. And yeah, updates. I don't know how many more we will get, and I don't think we will get 129 because Chinese brands still aren't really known for that. If it would have been an Android 1 device, this would have been something different, but even though it's stock Android, it's just not that, but by now at least it's stable. Okay, camera app, and yes, mine is stable. A lot of people had some issues with it out of the box. I actually did not, because I've read about crashes and all those kind of things. I never had those. I mean, the UI is okay. You can actually, as you can see here, swipe through remotes, which is something that I personally like quite a lot. Then, what I don't like so much, let's go to picture. HDR mode. That's way too big of a gap, and it's not conveniently to be changed. So yeah, just keep that in mind, also with the flash here. But that's not a big thing. The app works. What I have to get into though, yeah, the second cam. Pretty much, I would just say, forget the bokeh mode. It's not good on the front, nor on the back. So if you can live with a camera that doesn't pretty much have a bokeh mode, it's actually not that bad. So let's check those pictures, and this is definitely not what I was planning to show you. Wait, let me just get rid of this, and then we are fine. So this distance, actually sharper than some other ones from this distance, where usually most are still noticeable blurry, but it's fine. This distance, fine. Good sharpness, I would say. A little bit over sharpening is there, but it's not a big issue. Now this is the bokeh mode. Yeah. I don't think I have to mention the fact that this is pretty much a joke with, yeah. Especially here, for example, without the bokeh mode and with, I mean, exposure gets completely off, and the bokeh mode doesn't really work on here once again. So if you don't need bokeh mode, it's good. Then the front-facing cam is good. But with the bokeh mode, yeah, that is what I would say is not acceptable, because why even implement it if it works that bad? Now, low light, yeah, it diminishes obviously here as well. Now outside with decent weather, I have to actually say, just in terms of quality, I would have maybe even given it 4.5 stars. The only reason why not is that, like I said, the bokeh cam, like for example, as you can see here now, this is a joke. Like for example here as well, this is nothing. And the autofocus wasn't reliable, although the autofocus itself, once it gets it done, is on the slower side, noticeably slower than many cams in this price range. So quality is good, but it's a slow cam in terms of autofocus. It's not reliable, and the secondary cam doesn't really work. But as you can see here, even the high dynamic range, which is this photo, looks a little bit dark, but this is actually more realistic than the other picture. So I actually like the HDR mode quite a lot, and this is good. Like I said, I was so close to actually giving it 4.5 stars, because it can keep up with many other ones, but yeah, not quite in terms of convenience and so on. Now, super low light, yeah, this is not actually that bad. It's obviously not great. With a flash, it gets a little bit always on the warmer side. It doesn't get the white balance right. But without pretty much any light, these pictures are still okay. Now, low light itself is also okay. I know you hear a lot of okay, but that's just what the cam is. This is okay. Not too grainy, not too blurry. Focus, like I said, slower. And like I said, yeah, forget bokeh. I don't get why so many people gave this camera such a hard time when it comes to the bokeh. Just don't use it. I mean, it's not good on so many other cams anyways. Now, the camera is limited at 1080p 30 frames. As you can see here, this is without stabilization. I mean, the quality isn't great, and this is my main issue. No autofocus on the main cam. Don't worry, it works with open camera, and I will show that a little bit later. The quality is a little bit on the blurry side, and like I said, see here now, this is with focus, but yeah, the video quality is not good. This looks almost like 720p. But the good thing is, at least if you use it 1080p stabilized, the EIS works actually really good. Now, I mean, the quality is still not good, the autofocus still doesn't work, and there is quite a heavy crop, but yeah, stabilized. Not that bad, but yeah, the video definitely isn't great. I'm just gonna show you the open cam now, just to show you that this is also stabilized, but it is not quite as good stabilized because of the not that big crop. But yeah, now at least autofocus works, because what I did before was manual. This now does autofocus. So use open camera absolutely if you want it for video. Other than that, inside, it's a little bit here on the darker side for this picture. And you have EIS on the front camera, which is actually quite nice to see. quality is also good. Yeah, it drops frames once it gets darker. But the quality itself, even inside with not that much light, is passable. It's not great, but it's passable. Audio quality was actually quite good, but what I've noticed that I, for some reason in my demos, blocked the microphone a little bit easier, because when it's not blocked, the sound was actually quite clean, quite full, quite rich, good quality. But for some reason, using it the same way as I do other phones, it got blocked. And now outside, I mean, it's a little bit on the over-sharpened, smooth, blurry side, but I like the fact that it's stabilized and almost no warping going on. So that's that. And yeah, the conclusion will be short. This is not a bad phone, but as you can see by the rating already, there are a lot of 4 stars and even some lower ones, like for example, especially the fingerprint reader or something like that. But yeah, but for the same price, almost the same price or a little bit more, you can get 4.5 stars almost across the board, because so many phones at around 300 already offer so good value. So if you get this phone, maybe like in a few months, I don't know when you will see this review, for noticeably cheaper, it's not bad. If you, for example, get it for maybe like 200, I mean, yeah, don't expect too much from the camera in terms of bokeh or video. But the main camera for photos is actually quite good. The speaker gets the job done. The performance is okay, but a little bit more laggy. Battery life is solid. The display is okay, maybe not so much video. So everything is good. But also everything has a little bit of something that just could have been better, and most often is better on other phones. Nothing else to say? Yeah,